and welcome back to Quick Start Coaching Code Live 30-Day Bootcamp. You have made it to week 4. This is day 1 of week 4. And today, as with many days in the past, we're going to cover a distinction, a key to the lock on the door of successfully starting your coaching business. And I'm really excited about this one. This one's kind of a big one, because I think a lot of the time when we're working to get started with this business, one of the big questions that I think come up for real business people when they're getting rolling with this, real business people have just as much of a challenge getting their coaching business started as non-business people. In fact, a lot of times more challenges. And so one of the natural questions you might ask is, okay, where's the money? Show me the money here. So today we're going to talk about that. And we're not going to get into like pricing strategies and that kind of stuff. We're going to get into like really the business logistics of the models that we've already talked about. And I'm going to share with you some really important examples of how this works out really, really well in very profitable ways. So today, in our last week of the Quick Start Coaching Code Bootcamp, we're going to cover the $20,000 a month breakfast meeting. And this is for influencers only. Now, we're going to get into what that means in just a second. But first of all, a $20,000 a month breakfast meeting is actually fairly simple. I'm going to share with you the story of how I learned about this and who actually uses this strategy on a regular basis to generate millions of dollars in coaching income. So that is going to be a really, really cool. I promise you that if you watch this one, you're going to learn a lot. And I think it's going to be more inspiring for you to see like really where the money comes from in terms of this model. Okay, so that's the first piece. Second, we're gonna also cover a few issues that naturally come up when we're running this model that are kind of similar questions to like, where's the money? How's this gonna work for me, etc. So we're gonna cover that like right now. And then I'm gonna get into what I mean by an influencer. And then we'll have a couple other little housekeeping items here as well. So a lot to cover. Last week of the boot camp. Let's get going. Let's get started. See if I can get my head in the shot here, and we'll get going. So, and again, you got questions on this? I want to answer them today. So hit me up in the chat. I don't know if Facebook will let you chat with me. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. If not, pop over to YouTube. The YouTube link is in all the shares that I made. So first, the big questions that come up around the free session setting strategy that I've been covering throughout Quick Start Bootcamp as the definitive kind of centerpiece for coaching business models. Every coaching business model comes back to basically what I call free sessions, but there are natural and understandable issues and questions that'll come up around that. First one is, this is tremendously time consuming. Like, how am I going to have time to run all these free sessions where people may or may not show up? And, I just ended up getting strung along by people that kind of say yes and shine me on, and that's it. Yeah, Kenyatta, you're coming through. So I guess Facebook is like playing nice with us, although they try to get rid of us every chance they get, because they're the devil. Anyway, so anyway, the time question, it comes up. I mean, it just came up last night. And it's a reasonable issue that for a serious business owner you may have. So first thing is, look, you got to be diligent and vigilant with your time. I totally get that, right? You have to be smart about how you manage your time. So when we offer free sessions to people, if your time is strapped and you're already running profitable business ventures, and you only have so many hours a week to put in, like, just be vigilant about that. No, hey, look, if you're limited on time, the free session model is even better for you, because just be honest with people about that. Just let them know, look, I have like 3 slots this month that I have available. I am full up. And the more in demand you are, the more attractive that is. That's irresistible. It's like when my schedule got full, and my schedule is full usually about 30 days out now. Like, I don't even try to set free sessions. They set themselves. People come to me. Not like they're chasing me down, but by the time, they're asking if we could talk or something like that, I let them know what my options are. If they dilly-dally around with setting that, I'm like, look, they're full. because they really are. And as soon as they get that, they'll either leave because they're going to waste my time anyway, or they come back and say, okay, sorry, what's the next available? And they take it. They take it and they show up, right? So the fact that you're strapped for time, if that's the case, actually should work in your favor. And it doesn't mean that you'll never ever waste a little bit of this, the time you're going to put towards this strategy. You will at times, but net, it'd go better for you than people that got all the time in the world. That's number one. So, but be vigilant with it. Guard your time jealously. I could totally understand that. Limit your slots. Let people know they're limited. That's part of the free session pitch anyway. And if they take a slot, let them know, hey, look, you don't show up for that, you're not getting another one. You got to pay, right? Or this is it. You have to show. Are you going to show up for that session? Because I need to give it to somebody else. Really, it's really okay. Just let them know it's okay to not take it. Right? Be vigilant, be guarded with your time if you need to be. And some of you that may be the case, some of you that may not be the case. And either way, pick your poison. Now, that doesn't mean be prejudicial with the people that you're attempting to set free sessions with initially. So what I mean by that is if you walk into this strategy with the tacit belief that everyone is going to blow you off, waste your time, and just be a complete waste, and this is not worth it for you, then it will be. I can promise you that. It's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Not to mention that belief people will feel that from you in your tone and how you talk to them, how you approach them with the session. They'll kind of feel that you don't even want to bother, right? Because that's the way you think about it, right? Or how you work with them will be, let's say, so guarded that they'll feel like you don't even care, like you're just selfish. You're like, oh, this person just cares about their own time and their own economy and everything. They don't really want to help me. Why would I give them a little bit of my time, right? So you got to be careful with, again, being vigilant is great. Being prejudicial, being prejudiced against this either strategy, or if you're going to run it at all, if you're not going to run it, then who cares, right? What you think about it, right? But or prejudicial against the people that you're even thinking about setting a session with, being really leery and judgmental and already kind of preemptively thinking that this is a waste of your time, right? People are going to sense that from you, and they're just going to be like, oh, forget it. You're judging me already. They can feel your judgment, right? Or they can feel that you're really not 100%. And if you're not committed to them, why would they spend time with you? Why would they want you to be their leader, right? And you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy of nobody showing up, and you'll proven yourself right? So you got to just be careful of prejudice and limitations and limiting beliefs around this. And yes, if time is an issue, be vigilant. Absolutely, I'm totally up for that. Now let's talk money for a second, because time and money they're the same part of the same equation, right? Yeah, we in coaching, in the business of coaching, we are trading time for money to some extent, hopefully for, at a high pay level, $80, $100, $300 an hour, something like that. But it's still time for money to some extent until you go high leverage and product based. So if you're thinking, well, gosh, if I'm giving these sessions away for free, I could be charging for this. I could be making money for this. I can understand that as well. So here's the deal. Charging for these, what I call free sessions, or what other people will call discovery sessions or strategy sessions, charging is cool. Charging is okay if you can pull it off. So if you got the skills to do that, and you have enough free sessions that you're able to glean from the marketplace, quote unquote, free sessions for X amount of money, great, charge. Why wouldn't you do that, right? It's the same game though. I just call it a free session strategy because it's it's free to the customer, because if the customer is going to run that session with you for $10 or for $50 or for $150, to them, they feel like they're getting away with murder already. They should feel like whatever they're paying, it's a great deal, right? So by the way, there is no such thing as a free session, okay? When your client shows up for a free session that they didn't pay for, they pay with their time. So don't tell me they're not paying. Okay, they're giving up their time. Now, if they're not willing to give their time, then there's no session at all, right? Then they really blow it off. And okay, fine. But they pay anyway, right? Time is way more valuable than money for anybody who has their eyes open and realizes that there's a limit to how many days we have on this earth, right? So they pay anyway, even if you don't charge them. And also, if you can charge them money, that's great. Yes, it'll filter out the tire kickers and the ones that are just trying to take advantage of your time or really aren't committed in the first place. I get that. That's very helpful from that perspective. Plus, they're going to be that much more committed to the session when they show up. So I love that if you can handle it and if you can pull it off. The reason why I generally don't talk a lot about like charging something for those sessions is because when you're a brand new coach, you're usually not in a position to charge for those sessions. And if you try to do that, you end up with nobody signing up for them. Like everybody takes a pass right up front. And so no, you didn't waste any time, but you also didn't do anything. You're not even running a business yet. You're trying to run a ploy that's not working at all. Okay, so first make sure that you can run any kind of session, and then if you see that you have a flood of free sessions that you're setting because you're so in demand, lovely, charge whatever you could charge without like lowering the amount of session demand that you need in order to get the clients that you should get as well. Make sense? All right, let me know if it doesn't. So now that said, I almost got to this before, but I kind of went on to a little bit different tangent here. There's a big but in this whole idea of charging. And this is the big but. This is the caveat. If you're going to charge for a free session, whatever you're going to charge, whatever you charge should not stop your prospect from signing up for the session. It should still be a no-brainer in their mind that it would be really smart to sign up. I kind of said that before in different ways. Like they should still be hungry. Like if you set a free session with somebody and they're like, oh, I can't wait for this free session, it's gonna be awesome. Great. But then that same person, let's say you charge them $10, $15. And they're like, yeah, I'm still like, here, take my money. I'm in, I want it. Great, that you're still good. You're still good there. But then let's say, you go back in a different dimension, you go back in time, and instead now this time you're charging them $50. And now they're like, well, okay, all right, I'll pay you the $50 for it. Fine. You've gone too far. Now it's just that as soon as they get begrudging about it, you've salted the earth a little bit too much, right? You've created a barrier that you don't want with that marketplace. I mean, assuming similar customers are the people that you're prospecting, right? You're going a little too far because what's going to happen is some of the people are begrudgingly going to pay it, but others will just pass. And a lot of those others would have been clients for you if you just run a free session with them. If you just charge them $10 instead of 50, right? So I'm just saying, like, watch where you draw the line there. Whatever you charge, free, $10, $50, $1,000 for whatever that new audit is or that session or whatever you're going to do, cannot be a barrier in any way, shape, or form. Like it shouldn't be even like none of the people that you really want to run a session with should be having an issue, and it shouldn't give them pause, right? I mean, maybe like 5 seconds, like they have to think about it just for a second, right? But it's not like I have to go ask my wife if this is okay. I have to check with budget to see if we can spend the $50 or whatever it is. Like you've gone too far then, right? Like that is not the point of charging for a free session, is not to make a bunch of money. The only point, frankly, of charging for a free session would be screening people for those that are serious, they're committed, that actually want to work with you, maybe, and screening out the tire kickers and the guys that are wasting your time. I can totally get that. Does that make sense? So time-wise, be vigilant, but not prejudiced. And don't let yourself get into like generalized limiting beliefs, because then you're just hurting yourself. You're not hurting anybody else. You're not like saving yourself time and money by doing that. You're actually wasting your time and money because you're not even attempting to use the strategy. And then money-wise, make sure you're measured in your approach to charge, and don't get too greedy at this point. You could be plenty, like, I'll give you an idea. Like when I do free sessions currently, and this, I'm sure this will change over time as I get busier, etc. I charge $50 for a free session. It's not really, I mean, it's not really free, but it's basically it's free. It's $50 to work with me for the kind of free session that I give. It's nothing. Anybody that thinks that's the problem, I don't want to talk to them anyway, right? Now, That said, that once they that session that they get for that, there's no way that was worth $50. There's no way in hell. Okay. Any session I charge $50 for is easily worth 10 times that if they really show up and play full out in the session at all. You know, even if they're kind of half there, they're probably getting at least their money's worth, right? But anytime somebody pays $50 for a free session with me, they're getting $500 worth of value, and they all know it. It's like there's no holds bar with that session. They're going to get way more than what they paid for that session. Anybody that doesn't get that, okay, I could talk to them, but you know, I'm not going to run a session. Like they're not in a position to get my coaching now. But please understand, I only started doing that after I have a team to take on the thousands of leads we get every year to run sessions with them for free in that area. And we make hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that, you know, so it's definitely worth our time and our money to set those up. And on top of that, where my schedule was so full that like running a serious free session for free would destroy my schedule. Like it's not workable anymore for me, right? That was after like more than like about a decade of me being in the business, right? So there's a point where that made sense. If you can't set enough free sessions, don't even bother with the paid sessions because you're worse off. And yes, you could use it as a kind of a marketing attraction technique if you've got those chops, but most coaches really don't understand that. They don't know how to use that. They don't have the, they really just don't have the skills to market a paid session yet on a one-off basis. So just understand, like, don't just think you can do it just because you feel like it. Like you really have to have the skills to pull that off. And most coaches don't. That's why I don't start with that. So I hope the time and money conversations made sense around that. I think we had a couple comments. Okay, so I think if I think somebody's not going to convert, then you got to change your mindset. Well, okay, let's think about that. So if you're going into setting a free session thinking someone will not, like there's never going to be a client, right? You don't necessarily have to change your attitude about that. Like you can you can have that opinion, right? Like that's okay. But just make sure you don't have a prejudice against even giving them a chance, right? Like you might say, you know, there's a 10% chance of this person signing up for coaching. So what? Like that shouldn't stop you from running a session with them. Set 10, 20 free sessions with people like that. And assuming they pay like $200, $300, $400 a month, which is kind of not that much for a coaching relationship, like you got paid 10x for all the wasted time that you put in. This is it's just playing the odds. Like this isn't rocket science, right? So you can make that judgment if you choose to. Just prejudice is not as much in this case, in a business case, it's not as much about making judgments. You're going to make judgments. We all make judgments, but that's being human, right? But prejudice is about acting on those judgments. Like, hey, because of your color or religion or socioeconomic background or the way you answered my question just then, I'm going to treat you differently. I'm going to give or not give things differently, right? Like other than just somebody who's like totally homeless and is not even a part of your target market at all, like you got to withhold judgment from an active perspective. You're still going to judge. That's just being human. Can't help that. I don't expect you to stop thinking because how do we think? We all think from a biased perspective, from our past, from our already existing prejudices, but just don't act from that. You have to have a regimented discipline with whatever your program is until you've proven that you need to change it. So if your program is do a free session to anybody breathing, and you walk up to a homeless person and they're like, can I have a free session? You need to run that session no matter what your judgment, right? And as soon as you change that to, hey, I only work with women from 30 to 50 who are entrepreneurs. Okay, well then that homeless person, they don't count now, right? Like your prejudice doesn't even matter because you're not even going to run a session with them. But you see any female entrepreneur, feel 30 to 50, like you don't get to judge past that. Like that's your business model. You gotta be disciplined with that, even if your judgment is they're never going to be a client. Don't let yourself to make that judgment because you're I guarantee there's opportunity in those sessions that you're setting that you're going to miss out on if you don't set them. That may not even be that they sign up for coaching. It might just be a referral. It might just be you change their life. And then 3 years later, they come back and then they're ready for coaching, right? Like I didn't run sessions just so I could get a client and make a bunch of money. Like, yeah, that was part of it. There's no doubt I had to eat and pay my bills, but it was who I get to become. I became a master coach by coaching those individuals. And in their mind, like, wow, Jeff's the master coach. I give away a lot of free coaching, but some of them were business owners. Some of them became very wealthy. Some of them gave referrals to people that were like some of the legends in the world of business that I got to coach for thousands of dollars. And so just because the person isn't going to sign up for coaching doesn't mean you don't necessarily want to run a session with them. They could lead to anything. If you add enough value, you will find ways to make money from it, or the money will come to you eventually. And that'll take time, right? It might take years for that to come back to you, right? So you got to have a certain amount of patience with being able to run that. And yes, we want to be strategic, but don't let your prejudices turn into actively shooting yourself in the foot. Does that make sense? All right. So, So I appreciate you being honest about that, Kenyatta, like not wanting to run free sessions. You gotta, like, if you're gonna run free sessions, you gotta decide that you're playing the long game, because in the short term, it's gonna feel sometimes like waste of time, like you'll always get a feel like you gave more than you got when you're running a free session. Those $50 sessions that I do, you don't think that I feel like I gave way more than I got paid for that? You don't think that's a little disappointing sometimes? Like, come on. Like, I almost never walk away from one of those sessions feeling like I didn't give enough. I always feel like I gave a little too much. That's the way I want it, though, because I'm playing the long game. I know who I become for them. That's an investment that'll come back to me tenfold, right? So it's just a matter of like what game you're playing, right? If you're playing short-term money, yeah, you're probably not going to do this anyway. Playing short-term, like being covetous of your time, you're probably not even going to get into the strategy in the first place, right? Or you're going to be so concerned about the way you manage that you might go too far with this, and then ultimately the strategy, again, it doesn't play out well. All right, so we covered the time and the money issues that can be situated around free sessions now, which is part of the reason why, I came up with this before some of these questions came up, but part of the reason why I wanted to cover this especially today, because this really addresses the time and the money issues, this $20,000 a month breakfast meeting. So now, all right, we've covered some of the issues. Oh, and by the way, the real issue that all of this is about, it's not about time. It's not about money. This is about ROI. Anybody who appreciates business understands that time you can work out, money you can work out, but ROI, if you don't get the return on investment that you make, your business is broken. Okay. So like I said, sometimes the ROI might be years from now in my strategy, the way that I'm going to approach it. Sometimes the ROI is going to be immediate. I can't control that. I don't necessarily know. My job is to deliver the value, ask for the order, ask for a referral, and just do my business. Okay. But I know the ROI is there. I've seen it again and again and again and again over a period of years, not over a period of minutes. Okay. So I'm thinking long range. Okay. So as long as you have a business model where the ROI makes sense to you and you're committed to it, then don't hold back and don't let your prejudice or any judgment stop you from delivering 100% on that model. If you're not okay with the model, then change the model. Okay. There's all sorts of models, and we're going to talk about some of them just now, such that you will find a model that you think will work for you psychologically and in terms of the way the business model actually works. All right. I think I covered the ROI piece then. All right. So we got one other question. I'm going to answer that, and then we're going to talk about this strategy. We're going to get to how I learned this strategy. All right. So if a client has mindset that they know everything and can do everything themselves, so even though they have ahas during your session, they still act like you did nothing for them simply from the price point during close attempt. All right. So if that's your client, what would be the best coaching for them? If your client has that kind of I know everything and you can't really help me attitude, what should the coaching be? If your coaching is the best possible coaching for that type of client, then the first thing you probably need to handle is that, right? Like, how am I gonna coach you if that's your attitude, right? Of course, it's completely impossible. Everything is worthless for you. So if I don't transform your attitude around that, your belief around that, and why you have that belief and what's going on with that, then you're dead on arrival, right? So you as a coach with that situation is, once you've covered the items that you need to cover in your session before you're coaching them, the coaching you give them should be, hey, just so you know, what I'm noticing and what it seems to me that's going on for you that I think is going to totally make this like useless for you as a session, and I'm totally okay if we just exit now, is that you seem to think that no one can help you and this coaching session is probably going to be a waste of time for you anyway, and that there's nothing I can offer you. Is that something I'm just perceiving, or am I wrong about that? Am I off base on that? Now, they've got a choice. They could BS you or they could tell the truth. Assuming they tell the truth, and that really is the case, now you got them. Because now, if they actually can transform that in the session, you just change their life forever, right? And they're going to have a more valuable session, right? So that, you just got to be the best coach. Like, if you're a great coach for that, like if I had that person, they'd hire me, and guarantee you they'd hire me, because that's what I'd cover with them in the session in a way that they can hear, right? I've got to be really agile with them and be able to work well with that conversation. I'm there to cause the best breakthrough possible. That's the best breakthrough possible, with the lack of me knowing anything else about that type of client. I've worked with a lot of very egotistical clients one-on-one for that first session. And somewhere along the way, I will find a way to break through to them such that they get value from that session, even if their ego would have gotten in the way for most coaches. Now I've got it. Right? If you can't do that in your session, you're, like I said a couple days ago or yesterday, when we talked about the reason why you're not getting paid clients, it's not because you're not running a good business model. It's because your coaching is lacking. You didn't do that coaching, or you wouldn't have done that coaching. So you got to fix that. So maybe there's 10 of those kind of circumstances where you just couldn't get through to somebody. If that's the case, then in our sessions, like if you're in the Synergy program, or if you're in MCU, or in any sessions that we have together, even tomorrow, like during our live session, if you guys are going to attend that session, bring it up, like bring that kind of stuff up. We'll create breakthroughs for you and your coaching around that. Next time you have some client like that, they're a paying client then, right? But the issue there is not your model, it's your coaching in that case. If you wouldn't have done that naturally with the coach that you already are, right? Let's make you the best coach. Let's make you an even better coach. Then all these people that were a waste of time for you, it's amazing how as you become a better coach, all of a sudden all your clients get better as well. And by the way, this is not, in a way, it's kind of a part of the time and money issue. It's like somebody will say, these people waste my time. These people aren't worthy of me, right? Well, I haven't found anybody like that. And what I find is the reason why those people aren't good enough, or why they don't turn into paying clients, or whether, other than obvious financial issues and things that are really, really clear that a court of law would agree on with all of us. Like if you just have opinions about that, it's not the client, it's your coaching. And so like I show up with them and I got a new paying client, right? And it's like, it's just how this conversation that a lot of the coaching world has, that about people being coachable, like that person wasn't coachable. They weren't ready to change. It's funny. I haven't found anybody like that. And if that's the case, then is it really them? Because here's the thing. What's the most painful thing as a coach who really feels a lot of significance, a lot of pride in their coaching and being good enough to coach, to coach powerfully? The worst thing imaginable would be like, my coaching isn't that good for that person right now, and I got to get better. Like nobody wants to feel that. That's very painful for a lot of coaches to feel that. And so what we do sometimes as coaches, unfortunately, is we become arrogant rather than taking care of our own side of the table. We start judging other people and deciding that something's wrong with them, and it's their fault they can't change in that session, not ours, right? I'm not saying like you could be right, but the problem with being right about that is you're dead right. You destroy all the possibility of you improving and improving and improving to the point where you're like, I love horrible clients. I love them. I love a client when they're like annoyed at what I'm giving them for coaching, or when they question what I say, or when they jar me. I'm like, oh my God, it didn't work. Like, I love that. I eat that for freaking breakfast. Why? Because I'm addicted to being the best coach I can be. And I know that is the recipe for that. That's the breakfast of champions, working with somebody that I fail to transform. Because if I fail, and I hate that, that's very painful for me, I know I'm going to figure out why I failed and what I'm going to do differently next time. And I will never make the same mistakes again. And I will execute on the next strategy. It's like, man, I love horrible clients. I love people that are never going to sign up. I love that because it makes me the best coach imaginable. And by the way, when I first started coaching, I wasn't coaching mostly. I mean, I had a few, but I wasn't coaching very many $1,000 a month executives from big Fortune 10 companies. But as I coached people who weren't that and weren't that and weren't that and like I was like really having struggles with getting them to break through their own BS, and I learned how to do that. Eventually, I got so good that others that saw me coach said, "I want Jeff coaching my executives for $1,000 a month." And then I got those clients, and I got a ton of them. So, like. Was it worth it? I think so. I ROI'd that, So, yeah, I mean, maybe you don't care about that. Maybe you don't want to be that good. Maybe you just want to work with a select few clients, but you better have good marketing. You better have a great business that sucks those clients in, and you better be ready to coach those clients in any way, shape, or form that you can. And those clients, if they're not ready to change or they're not working out, then you're really shot, because then you have no way to get better. So I hope that helps. It's like, those items that I shared, I think yesterday or the last couple of days, around like why you're not getting the paying clients, that like those are accurate. Like you want to find, like, that's it. There are no other reasons why you're not getting a paying client. So go back to that video if you haven't watched it, or if you kind of need to dredge it up again and really do some soul searching around what that might be for your side of things. Yeah, patience can be a huge asset in the coaching session. Maybe outside of the coaching session, it's something. Impatience is a great thing too, right? Yeah, man. I mean, it just depends on the situation. Your emotions, patience, impatience, highly economically driven thinking, or overly giving, right? Let's go to the extremes. Those emotions, those psychologies, they all serve. They're all helpful. The only question is where. Where is me being overly giving hurting me? And where is me being overly economically driven hurting me, right? Because they each hurt in some area, right? I just got to figure out where I want to plug in the right states of mind so that it pays off in my business, right? And your job is to figure out where your mindset limitations might be hampering you and what you're going to do about it. Totally. So really, really good. And I appreciate your honesty about that, Kenyatta, because those, like, without that honesty, and by the way, we have students that are they can't be honest with themselves about that because they're too arrogant, or they're too scared, or they're too stuck in being right, and they can't possibly imagine needing to correct themselves. So just the courage that it takes for you to like really get in that conversation, that's everything. With that courage, anything is possible for you. Without that courage, no growth is possible. And whatever you came into the boot camp with is probably what you're going to walk away with. And you will walk out of here saying, nope, that promise that Jeff made of you starting your coaching business and getting paying clients out of it, not possible. Won't work for me. Rather than just getting deep on this and drilling deeper and finding what you need to transform so that it's going to really work out for you. I mean, like lawn mowing business, don't need to do that, right? Carpet cleaning business, don't need to do that, right? Buy, sell businesses don't need to do that. Those are businesses that are just basic mechanics. This business is leadership. You got to go deep. And if you don't, and you're just scratching on the surface and you're prejudicial and you're creating your own limitations, yeah, you're going to get stuck. Not because you're not a good business person. You could probably run an amazing business, but because you're limited in your leadership power today by something. Not because you're unable to be a great leader or a great coach, but because you have barriers to that. And when we talked about the why you're failing, it's a long video, I know, but the why you're failing video talks through how do you discover what those barriers are. And so you want to constantly be discovering those, and it may not feel good to do that, but then getting past them as well. All right. I'm glad we I'm glad we covered that piece. Yeah, it can literally stop you. I mean, Kenyatta just said, it stopped me in my coaching for 2 to 3 years, right? What's wonderful, what's beautiful is you're committed enough to come back even after that. A lot of people wouldn't be. And at the same time, it's like, my coaching for you is don't let yourself stop yourself again. Find the answer. There is an answer, right? Find it. And it's not going to feel good when you find it, probably. Because part of the answer is going to be in you, that you got to deal with that. And part of the answer is going to be the things you see in others and the things you see in business as well. But, like, we're warriors here, right? Like, as business owners, we're like, business is a game for warriors that are destined to die. Business is a game for warriors that are destined to die. The longer you're in business, the more likely you die. 50% die. 50% of businesses die by year 5 or like 1. I don't know what it is. And then 10 years, it's like 90%. And the 10% that are left, many of them are twisted and gnarled and messed up and wrecked, like psychologically, economically, etc. So you got to be willing to really fight for those breakthroughs within you as a leader in this business, and then also externally, just like any business owner would and needs to as well. So it's tough, like not an easy thing. And if being in a coaching business isn't for you, come work for us. Like, we got lots of opportunities to make money, not having to be responsible for the whole game. And I'm glad to work with you if that's the case. But if you really want to run the business, be ready. It's gonna hurt sometimes. There's no doubt about it, but it'll be worth it because you'll know who you become in the process, and you will get paid for it. And the pride and the joy and the fulfillment of that, nothing, like, I don't know anything that can match that, at least in this business. So, all right, we've really beat that horse to death as far as time and money and ROI. So finally, let's get to this. I'm going to share with you the story of how I learned the $20,000 a month breakfast meeting strategy. So when I first started my coaching business, this is after I went through coaches training with Tony Robbins and went to work for him for over a year. And I had left that business and I'd done other businesses, and I came back to coaching because I realized this was me. And the ex-VP of coaching at Tony Robbins had quit that job as well. So we were both kind of ex-employees. And she was running a seminar on how to fill your practice with paying clients. This was like 2001 that this was happening. Okay. And she was joined by the top coach in the world at the time, as voted by his peers in the International Coach Federation. His name is Bob Alderman. He recently passed, and he eventually became my coach. But the other individual that came to that seminar was a guy whose name was Sandy Vilas. And Sandy at the time was the president of a little company called Coach University. It's one of the first schools for coaches. And so here I've got these 3 amazing coaches in front of me. I've got the ex-VP of coaching for Tony Robbins. I've got the top coach in the world, as voted by his peers in International Coach Federation. And then I've got the president of Coach University, who had bought Coach University from the founder of ICF, Thomas Leonard, right? And so I'm going into this seminar, and they all said, okay, we want your elevator pitches. I gave this elevator pitch, and I told them what my prices were, and they totally were like, what are you doing? Like, you are on another planet. Your head's in the clouds. You're charging too little. You're talking weird. Like, I just totally got beat up in the seminar. And but I learned a lot, and they eventually voted me like most improved in like 2 days, which is like probably doesn't mean that much. But anyway, one thing I learned from Sandy at that time was how he built his coaching business before he bought Coach University from Thomas Leonard. Sandy was already a serious business person, right? He's hard-nosed oil and gas business, like a money guy, right? And he lived in Delaware, in Dover, Delaware, and he had built this network around him of business people. I think he called it like the Dover Club or something like that. And it was his network that he had built. But he's a kind of a business magnet, okay? And he's got this amazing network, and then he becomes a coach. So he explained to me at one point what he did to build his coaching business. And here's what he did. He said, look, I've got this great network. I'm already an influencer. Oh, by the way, what an influencer is someone who already has a large group of people that see you as a leader for them, right? They look up to you as a leader. You already have influence with them. So this strategy is for influencers only. If you have a huge social media following and they really like follow your requests and they don't just consume your content, but they take your advice and they it's not just like, hey, that was a good speech. It's like, let us march, right? We're talking about Demosthenes here, okay? Like, you know, like Cicero would speak in ancient Greece and everybody would say, oh, that was a great speech. But Demosthenes would speak. And after his speech, everyone in Rome would say, let us march. And they go to war based upon what Demosthenes would say, right? That's an influencer. Cicero was just a celebrity. Does that make sense? So, so the point is you have a large enough group of people that will march on your orders. Okay. So like you got a Facebook following, you got, 20,000, 30,000 in your Facebook group or whatever. And when you when you claim that a product is really good, they all go buy it, right? Like you're an influencer for that group. You have a bunch of YouTube subscribers and they are constantly asking you for advice, right? Like you could tell, like you're an influencer. They look up to you as a leader. You have, like Sandy Vilas had, you have a local network and they all meet with you and follow like your lead and they come to meetings that you set up. Like you can tell you're a leader in that way, right? You have the lead. You're an influencer. Does that make sense? So like, I mean, it's any kind of following. I'm not just saying social media. That's one, like any group of people in any form of media will follow your lead. They will take your advice. They will follow what you ask if they think that is possible. Okay. And like, obviously different numbers, like for some people, like a local network, it could be 100 people. A social media network probably needs to be, 5,000, 10,000 at least in order to have enough numbers where that would make a difference. So every network and media source is going to be different in terms of the number that you need. So I can't tell you an exact number, but if you have a big enough group of people that really all follow your lead, so to speak, you're an influencer. That's the definition of an influencer. Okay. Now, Sandy was an influencer in his local area. There was no such thing when he started his coaching business. There was no such thing as social media. There was no audiences. There was no Google at that time. He just had a bunch of people in Dover that came to his meetings because he had a network called the Dover Club. And I think he had a couple of 200-300 people in that network, but these were heavy duty, business people. And so he had strong influence and strong leadership because he was the governor of this network. He had created the network. Okay. It's a powerful place to be. He was respected in that community as well. Now, what he did when he became a coach is he would set breakfast meetings. He would set breakfast meetings with all these people in the Dover Club. He just called, and he knew all of them, right? So he'd just call them and say, hey, George, let's have breakfast. And or lunch, right? Just some meal, right? And of course they would say yes, because he's a leader for them. He's an influencer for them. And then he would just say this one other thing. He would say, and by the way, I really want to talk about like how things are going for you and what's going on in your business and your life at the time. So, be ready to share and like talk about like some of the goals that you have and what's going on, what challenges you're facing. Does that make sense? And of course that's not weird. Like if I called like my buddy up who doesn't like necessarily look up to me and I said, be ready to talk about your goals and your dreams, they would be like, Suey, what are you talking about? I'm not like, what are you smoking, right? Like they don't look up to me, right? Like you're never a prophet in your own land. But some individuals that I know that are in followings of mine, if I would say, hey, let's have breakfast and be ready to talk about your goals, dreams, and challenges, they'd be like, yeah, I'm up for that, right? I'm a leader for that, right? So he could say that and it wouldn't be thought of as weird in his work, in the world of the people that he was working with, if he said that confidently and with poise and with a certain amount of commitment in the matter of that. Like he'd say it elegantly and all that good stuff, right? Because he's a charismatic person. He's a leader. So to the breakfast or to the lunch, he would bring just a notepad, like a legal pad, and he would bring an intake package and he would bring the coaching agreement. So he had like a clipboard with the agreement. He would bring a stack of papers. He had a pretty hefty intake package, and he would bring just a legal pad so he could take notes. And then his job during that meal was not to eat. It was to listen and take a lot of notes and ask provocative coaching questions. And at the end of that meal, this was his quote, like, this is my strategy, but his strategy was he would look at everything that they shared with him after like really interrogating them about all the challenges and all the problems they're having and all the places where they're like really like just totally blind spots and places where they're really suppressed and just messy places in their life. And he would say, based upon all the notes I took and based upon everything you shared with me, your life's a mess. That was his close, right? And then he would close for coaching at that point. He would say, look, $250 a month. I will work this stuff out with you. What we're going to do is get this stuff handled. We're going to unravel all these messes, and you're going to start to work towards achieving these goals with integrity in reality. Is that something you're up for doing? And since he's a leader and says he did a great job in the breakfast and he was a great coach for them and he didn't hold back and he was charismatic and committed to that client, most of these guys said yes. Okay. And he gave them the agreement. These people would sign the agreement right there at the breakfast or at the lunch. He would hand them the intake package. He would say, fill all this out. I want you to take these assessments so you do this work. And then I'm looking forward to meeting with you next month for our first coaching session. I'll see you then. So, he just closed like that. And he got out of his like 300-400 people in his network in the Dover Club, he got 80 clients over a period of 6 months. 80. He didn't charge. I mean, like they paid for breakfast. They paid for lunch. Okay. So the way he said it, because we asked him at the time, he said, well, who pays? Like who's paying for the meal? And he said, look, if I'm coming to there, I'm going to give them all this great coaching for free and I'm not charging them. They're paying for the meal. That was his philosophy around it. I don't think that really mattered that much, whatever. But the point is 80 clients, $250 a month for each client. He would give 2 half-hour sessions a month, very little admin because he wasn't doing a lot of extra stuff. He was just coaching them. He's a very powerful coach. Do the math. $20,000 a month. 80 clients times $250 a month is $20,000 a month. That is a less than 40-hour work week. Okay. All free sessions. So don't tell me free sessions don't work. Don't tell me it's a waste of your time. Don't tell me you can't do that unless you're not an influencer. And in that case, we got to work on either how you're going to become an influencer. Like if you work with us in Synergy and you're going through Effortless Enrollment Mastery, our entire second module, which takes like 2 months to go through, is how to become an influencer in any way, shape, or form. And we're not talking about social media influencer. We're talking about being a leader in your group, in your society, in your network, in your community, and exactly the conversations that you have that create that, exactly what makes you into a committed leader in your community, whatever community you want to enter into and create that relationship. So you can get on board with that and do that. But if you're not an influencer, yes, that strategy probably won't work for you. You will be probably wasting your time. Okay. But if you're already an influencer, that can work. And if it doesn't, then again, go back to why you're not getting clients, that video, and let's cover what's the thing that's not working. Is it your coaching? Is it your pitch? Is it your client? What part is not working well? And we got to fix that. Make sense? All right. So that is the story, if you will, of the $20,000 a month breakfast meeting as proven to be working by Sandy Vilas and thousands of other coaches as well. So now you might say, look, I don't do breakfast meetings or I don't have like a bunch of local people that I can network with like that yet. Fair enough. So, but let's talk about the organizing principle behind why this worked for Sandy and see if we can find other examples that you might be able to find a place in standing so you can use maybe a different strategy. So why did this work for Sandy? Well, we already talked about he's a leader. Okay. He's an influencer. He's not going to be somebody where somebody blows him off for his lunch date, right? Like he's attractive already to people. If you're not attractive, you're not a leader for people. Yes, this might be a bit of a waste of your time. I think we already covered that in so many words. His asking for you to come up with your life and talk about that with him would be weird if you're seen as somebody who like, why would we be talking about that? And you're not the person for me to talk to. I'm not comfortable with that conversation. having that conversation with you, right? So he's a leader for them in their life, not just like just as a business owner or something like that. Make sense? So he was a leader. That's one of the reasons why it worked. Also, secondly, he had the commitment and the confidence to pull this off. He had the coaching skill, and he was committed and confident and charismatic enough to pull this strategy off. So again, if you don't have that, you can get that. If you're not a leader yet, you can become that. Or if not, you could use a different strategy. But this is for influencers and leaders that have the charisma to pull that off. And I see it again and again and again. People monetizing that leadership in their community. Okay. Now let's talk about some other examples of this that are not breakfast meetings, but a little different, but they have similar results. So I work with a coach. His name is Thomas. He works in the UK. And Thomas, a couple of years ago, achieved 6 figures as a coach. All he did was what we taught him, among some other branding strategies that he learned in the open market as well. And he just runs free sessions. That's all he does. He got 10 new paying clients last month. I think he charges like $600 a month. So do the math on that. That's pretty good. He works with a lot of lawyers and a lot of heavy duty, like not executives, but like individual contributors that are highly paid hourly workers, partners in firms and professional service community and things like that. Because I mean, in London, there's a lot of those, right? It's 10 million people, and a ton of them are heavy duty performers, right? They're competitive people. So he works with these guys. He runs free sessions. Here's how he does a free session. He has them come to his apartment, which is a high rise, a really nice place. So kind of it's a little bit of an intimidation factor there. And then as soon as those lawyers walk in, he tells them, look, let me tell you right off the bat, you don't get to be a lawyer with me. If we're going to work together at all, you got to stop being a lawyer with me right now, because you're never going to get any breakthroughs. You're not going to get anything from the coaching if you just keep putting me on the stand and interrogating me and all that kind of stuff. That is not your job in here, and that is not okay. So that's a no pass. So you either can handle that, or I think we're done, because I don't want to waste your time, and I certainly don't want to waste mine. That was his attitude walking in, and what he would literally say to his clients in different words. Obviously, not all of them are lawyers, right? But he has this charismatic, confident, very intense and committed attitude where he doesn't take less than everything he's got to get from his client for them to truly get value. He's serving them in that way and himself. So that free session strategy worked for him. And that I bet you he's been making more than 10 a month for quite a while. I'm not sure if he's quite at 20 yet, but he's in the ballpark of this. Another individual, we did a case study on this guy, Jeff Klubeck. First 2 months out of school with us, out of the mastery program, he got to 8,000 a month in coaching clients. Very confident. He was a teacher, so he already had a community around him, highly networked individual, and just never pulled punches with his clients. 2 months, $8,000 a month. What did he do? I'll tell you what he did. He did the $20,000 a month breakfast meeting, but not breakfast. He did it in the form of something that I like to call a free session. So he didn't charge for those sessions, but he's making $8,000 a month. So he found the time to do that because it was worth it to him. Those are all one-on-one free sessions. Thomas, Jeff, many, many others, just one-on-one free sessions. That's how they did it. Just committed leaders. And they monetize their leadership into coaching clients through the free session model that I gave them. Okay. So yeah, it's not really something that's debatable as to whether or not that strategy works. It's just a question of whether you can make it work, with your skills and your psychology about it, your beliefs about it, and the clientele that you want to work with, basically. And if not, then we can change the strategy and we can change the model. It's actually a very flexible model to some extent. Let's talk about a couple other students with this $20,000 a month breakfast meeting. Hal Elrod, one of my favorite students. I mean, this guy has done very well. He started coaching through just going to school with us. And I gave him our model, the very model I'm teaching you today. He immediately got to 6 figures. He had some ups and downs, there's no doubt. But he had a full practice within months, I believe, definitely in less than a year. Just running free sessions and speaking, though. So understand that, like, when you're running free sessions, like there are things you can put around the session that make those free sessions pay off better. So what Hal did is he would go in and give speeches. So I think some of them he even got paid for. He'd give paid keynotes, but some free speeches as well, like free workshops and stuff like that. And so he would go in and give a speech, and then he'd run sessions, free sessions with everybody that attended. Now, can you imagine the difference between just chasing somebody at Denny's and just like, hey, do you want a free session with me? And being a speaker that was invited to come there to your group, and this guy's speaking in front of like 100 people or 30 people or 50 people. You look up to that speaker at a different way than the person that's chasing after you on the street, right? So those guys show up for your free session because they're like, wow, you're like this amazing person. I put you on a pedestal already. I look up to you. Free session, no brainer. I'm all over that. And so he didn't step over pennies on the way to dollars. He just used a model that made sense to him using his leverage, and he leveraged that into a six-figure practice. And then he did the same thing with a book. He wrote The Miracle Morning, got tons of people into his groups and into his social media following and all that, and then turned that into free sessions and seminars as well. And those free sessions turned into $1 million a year business. So think, it's just a question of ROI at the end of the day. Is it worth it to you to run free sessions to the point of making $1 million a year? Like Hal, maybe you're not Hal. Maybe you're not going to be Hal. Part of that's probably up to you. Part of that's up to your genetics, right? I can't predict your DNA, right? But I'm just telling you what people have done with this model and how they've fabricated the model. And all these models are talked about in the Quick Start content as well. Let's talk about somebody bigger than Hal. Hal's huge, okay? Well-known author, best-selling author, $1 million a year coaching business. I personally coach a $5 million a year coaching business. They do $5 million in revenue every year. All they do is coaching, and they use this strategy to do $5 million a year in revenue. Okay. Now, how do they use this strategy? Are they taking people to breakfast? No, they're not taking people to breakfast. Here's what they do. I'm going to tell you their little secrets. Number one, they get their speakers in front of adult education classes all around the country. And they give free classes, kind of like Learning Annex type of classes, where there's like a catalog of courses that you can take for adults. And they just get themselves inserted into a little one-time class, like a night class for 3 hours, into that catalog all around the country. And they bring a teacher in. The teacher teaches the class. Then after the class, they say, hey, if you want a free session tomorrow, I'm giving free sessions. They're only 15 minutes, but I'm going to give you a free session with me. And then a bunch of people the next day show up for the free session. They run the free sessions, and they make tens of thousands of dollars in revenue and coaching sales off of that 1 or 2 days that they spend in that city. And then they move on to the next city. They do this all over the country. They generate millions of dollars in revenue just with that one free session model. And nobody's paying for those sessions, right? I mean, they could charge. They could charge for the sessions. They could, but they'd be shooting themselves in the foot. They'd be hurting their $5 million model. So half their revenue comes from just that alone. Again, they're putting something around the free session so that the free session pays off better for them. Does that make sense? It's a higher leverage, bigger influencer. They become an influencer. They become an influencer for that group as soon as they teach for the class, because they're like, wow, you're the teacher. I look up to you. I want a free session with you, right? If they were just somebody on the street that they met, they wouldn't be able to pull the same thing off. Make sense? All right. Now, the other half of their business comes from webinars. The webinars that they offer are basically they're like a facsimile of the adult education class. They charge $7 for the webinar, I think. Maybe they're charging more now, but I think they were charging $7 for years. They get thousands of people to sign up for that $7 webinar, hand over foot. And then after the webinar, guess what they do? They set up free sessions. They don't pay for the sessions. They just pay for the webinar. Okay. So, I mean, you can see like something's being paid for, but not the session. So you could make somebody pay for the session or not. But the point is, this strategy, this free session strategy, is the basis for I personally coach these guys. Like, I know what their revenue is. I've seen their books. Like, we don't get to doubt this. We don't get to argue with it unless you just think I'm lying to you. And okay, fine. I don't know why you listen to me at all then, if that's the case. But they're doing $5 million a year. Like, if that's more than you, then free sessions might be something to consider. That's all. If you're willing to put the model together and maybe copy some of these examples of this this particular approach. So Hal and that individual, or that not individual, but this group, this $5 million a year coaching business, they're leveraging speaking and education and webinars, high leverage assets to pipe people into free sessions, which is what makes that model work. The free session is a huge part of it. It's the center of that universe. It's the eye of that hurricane. But yes, there's other things around that make that work out well. Does that make sense? So hopefully we've really kind of filled in some of the blanks with some of these stories of whether it's Sandy Vilas from Coach University, or Thomas and Jeff, or Hal Elrod, or some of my other clients that have done really well with this free session model as to why it works, why it's proven, and how you might make it work for you, depending on what your model is and what your challenges are and what your mindset is as well. The key to all of this, it's more than just time and money, although obviously time and money, you got to work those variables out for yourself. The keys to this are value. Every one of these individuals, Jeff or Hal or these other businesses I coach, they find ways to add value and create value transacted even before the coaching session. What happens before the coaching session just as important as what happens on the coaching session. And they can actually give less in the coaching session as a result. But secondly, the other linchpin of this is influence. Every one of these examples is an influencer, or they find ways to become an influencer in the mind of that client and influence them before they show up to the free session. So they create an influence with their prospect, and they create value for their prospect before and during the free session as well. Value, influence. Value, influence. Say it with me. Value, influence. Those are the keys to this. If you do these things, if you copy these models and what I talked to you today about, and you don't add value, you're going to lose. If you do these models and you add value, but you don't have influence, you're going to lose. You have to find strategies, marketing strategies or leverage strategies, so that value and influence are present by the time you're running that free session. Or like I did when I had no value and influence up front, is just once people actually do show up for the free session, and yes, some did and some didn't, I create value and influence at that point, and there's no question about that, right? But some point along the way, value and influence has got to show up, or this model will not work. Figure out if you lack value in the transaction you're having with these clients from their perspective, not from yours. Figure out if you're lacking influence or you don't have enough influence with them by the time you have that free session or during the free session, and handle it, right? Get it handled. And then beyond that, like watch this again and find some models that work for you, because the $20,000 a month breakfast meeting can work for you in some way, shape, or form, depending on how you weave your marketing and your branding and your influence and value strategies around it. That we got to work together on that. There's no cookie cutter for that. But the cookie cutter part is that you're going to do a free session or a cheap session for those of you that can charge for that. And you're going to add value in that session, and you're going to influence people in that session. You're going to be very powerful, and you're going to give them the best coaching possible. If you do that, along with some of these other things that we've talked about in these models, you're going to make it happen. It's going to work. It's going to work out. It's not going to work out today. It's not going to work out tomorrow. You're going to feel like you wasted your time, or you didn't make enough money, or you're not ROIing. I get that. I can totally understand. I feel that way sometimes as well, even today. But in the long term, you will get paid. In the long term, you will get clients. So one of my favorite mentors used to say, you don't always get clients today. You don't always get clients tomorrow, but you always get clients using these models. If you can't believe that, you'll never make it. If you can believe that, that's a big part of what this bootcamp is about, is just believing that it's possible enough. So you're going to do the work tomorrow and tomorrow, so that you get to the point where the ROI is just there. Not everybody makes it there. And also, the bootcamp is really about getting started. So it's possible for you to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And later on this week, by the way, we're going to talk about going full-time, actually what it looks like to repeat this process and go full-time and make this a life. The discipline and the models and the transition strategies that you want to use, so this actually becomes reality as well. And I look forward to talking to you about that then. Good luck with this stuff. And let me know how it goes. Let me know how it works for you and what your questions are about it. I'm happy to answer them. Take care.